Ms. Krupa Nishar is a forensic psychologist and a TEDx speaker. Currently, she is an assistant professor in forensic psychology in National Forensic Sciences University, Gujrat. Her publications are on intra conflict and police personality, trauma related effects, and intervention for children with HIV plus status, and police culture and occupational stress. She has practiced her expertise on more than 50 criminal cases at forensic labs and crime branch Ahmedabad. She has invited as a source person at various platforms like IIM Ahmedabad and at the University of Madras to conduct workshops about the application of psychology.
Thank you so much, Adya, and thank you, LexLawgical, for giving me this opportunity. Today, we'll understand what is forensic psychology and what is the relation between forensic psychology and criminal psychology. So, good evening, everybody. I hope everybody is doing well in this COVID time. Today, we are going to study and learn about Introduction to Forensic Psychology. I'm an assistant professor at School of Behavioral Science at National Forensic Sciences University. So, we all know that psychology has been defined as a science which studies the mental aspect that determines human behavior. Forensic psychology is the interface between psychology and law. It can also be defined as the production of psychological knowledge and its application to the civil and criminal justice system. So, as forensic psychology, we understand is applying psychological principles to the criminal justice system as well as the civil justice system. The word forensic is derived from the word forensis, which means forum, the place where trials are conducted in Roman times. And whatever word you join with the word forensics helps in the conduction of the criminal trial. For example, if I have forensic biology, then the principles of biology help me in conducting the trials and coming to justice. If I have forensic odontology, then I have the study of dentistry and the study of bones helping me in the conduction of trials. So the ABPP recognizes forensic psychology as a specialty and defines it as the application of the science and profession of psychology to questions and issues relating to law and legal system. According to Blackburn, the provision of psychological information for the purpose of facilitating a legal decision can be defined as forensic psychology. So, I would like you to concentrate on the word facilitating. So, forensic psychology does not help you to arrive at a legal decision, or based on forensic psychology, the judge won't give a final verdict, but it is one of those evidences that will help in making the legal decision. Now, what is the interrelation between forensic psychology and criminal psychology? You all have had two more lectures ahead on understanding criminal psychology. So I won't go into what is criminal psychology, but the criminal psychology is the academic part of the criminal justice system, and the forensic psychology is the applied part of criminal justice system. So wherein on criminal psychology you understand the motive, the intent, why a person becomes a criminal, what is the behavior of a criminal, whereas forensic psychology is more about investigation of criminal cases and prevention of prevention of crimes. So in criminal psychology, a person can you can say can have interdisciplinary aspect with biological psychology, where he tries to understand that how criminality can be inherited, how in families, if the father is a criminal, then the son can also be criminal, or how does criminality I mean, don't do the lines on the PPT. How can a person become criminal? Because of the genes running in the family, or effects of injury. For example, if a person has a head trauma or a head injury due to because of childhood incidences, then how does that head trauma or frontal lobe injury make the person criminal? In the same way, criminal psychologist can also help in understanding criminals from developmental psychology. How aggression and delinquency is studied from childhood to adolescence to adulthood. How aggression can be, you can say, how aggression is built by watching aggressive video games or aggressive households. How a child models those behavior, how a child imitates those behavior. So criminal psychologist studies that. A criminal psychologist can also study eyewitness testimony and how to interview them. So a criminal psychologist, we have, for an eyewitness is somebody who has a first hand experience to crime. Okay, so suppose a car accident has taken place in front of me, I am the primary eyewitness. So a person who's an eyewitness might have memory which is faltered because everything happens too quickly. So criminal psychologist can help in understanding what part of the testimony the eyewitness is giving is true, and how to interview the eyewitness as well as the criminologist with different techniques to understand the truth of the case. A criminal psychologist may also help in jury selection. For example, if you have seen the movie Rustam, you must have seen a jury. Okay, a lot of them were very biased because of the communities that Rustam was belonging to. So and a lot of them were biased because of the newspaper reports, because of the media influences. So criminal psychologist also tries to understand from social psychology point of view how juries and media can influence the trial and can influence the behavior of a criminal. Whereas in terms of forensic psychology, we see that a forensic psychologist helps in the recruitment and the stress management training of police. He or she also helps in the profiling and geographical profiling, or I can say criminal profiling, that we see in the Criminal Minds and Mind Hunters TV series as part of investigative psychology. Forensic psychology can also help in the assessment or prediction of criminal behavior. If a person has come to jail and he's going to go on bail, would he repeat the behavior or would he not repeat the behavior? What kind of suicidal tendencies the person has? What kind of mental disorders the person has? And a forensic psychologist also plays a very important role in prisons by treating the prisoners or understanding whether the person should be released or should not be released. So, what is the scope and roles of a forensic psychologist and a criminal psychologist? In terms of legality, in terms of the law, or in terms of the criminal justice system, a criminal psychologist or a forensic psychologist can give expert testimony in the court. Expert testimony because they're experts in their area and they can give expert testimony regarding the behavior of the criminal. What was the motive of the criminal? Why did he do it? Was it just situational? What was the mentality of the person? Was he guilty enough? What is the mental disorder of the person? So everything, they are experts to analyze that, to assess that, so they can give expert testimony in the court. A forensic psychologist, however, can also give testimony by using investigative techniques like polygraph, narco analysis, bios, that I'll go on further. uh, and a forensic psychologist and criminologist can also help interview a criminal to understand the motive behind it, or how much truth is in his statements, and help the police find the veracity of the statements. A criminal psychologist and a forensic psychologist can also help in the training part of the police and how to be sensitive towards criminals. So for example, many criminals are physically disabled, or have mental disorders, or they belong to the minorities. So how a policeman should handle these cases can also be given training. In correctional settings, also known as jails or prisons, nowadays they are known as correctional settings because jails and prisons are more of stereotypical in nature. They are correctional settings because they correct your behavior. So a forensic psychologist can help in giving the treatment to prisoners to help them not repeat the crime. In corporate setting, a forensic psychologist helps in the recruitment of employees and understand whether the employee will do a crime or not, basically do a white collar crime or not. So understanding the criminal tendencies of employees. In corporates, for criminal psychologist or forensic psychologist can also be in the investigation panels of criminal cases like sexual abuse cases. For victims, a forensic psychologist can give rehabilitation treatment so that they can get reintegrated back into society. And as a society in whole, a criminal psychologist or a forensic psychologist can help in understand helping the society understand what are the criminals. Even criminals can exist at your home, for example domestic violence, how to protect yourself, what resources are available to punish those criminals or to lodge a complaint. So such awareness programs can also be done from a society point of view. So a forensic psychologist and a criminal psychologist can work in legal setting, in police setting, in correctional setting, in corporate setting, victims and with society. Now, why do we need psychological investigation? We know that we have DNA profiling, blood sampling, fingerprint analysis, question documents. Such we have such fine scientific evidences. Then why do we need it? However, but we nowadays see even COVID times where we have no physical interaction with everybody, such types of crimes have reduced. For example, thefts or murders, they have reduced, and more of cyber criminals have come up. So the need for extraction of information from suspects is imperative, as many crimes have become well organized and the physical and the biological evidences have disappeared from the crime scene. In the beginning, we used to concentrate a lot on how body language appears and how from body language I can understand if the person is lying or not. But if you see in body language, if I am sitting with my crossed arms, in crossed arms might look to you that okay, the person is very hesitant, or the person has too much attitude and is being very deceptive in nature, not revealing too much information. But if you go towards the south of India, crossed hands is a sign of respect towards authority. So body language keeps on changing from culture to culture and from nation to nation, from region to region. So how do you standardize body language is a big question. So because body language could not give a lot of answers to our questions, we went on to interviewing styles. Now a lot of interviewing styles came up. For example, interviewing styles like suppose I have to tell you ki, okay, from the you tell me your way from your house to the railway station. Okay, so you might say ki, okay, I leave my house, there is a chai tapri that comes, there is a movie theater that comes, and then the railway station comes. You go very quickly in a forward direction. But if I say reverse the story and tell me how do you go back from the railway station to your house, it's very difficult to go backward. Okay, so when you go backward, you tend to remember a lot of details. So this is one of the interviewing styles that we use. But that also didn't occur, that also didn't give enough results, because many criminals are expert in understanding what interviewing styles are, and you really need a lot of expertise in that. So we came to understand that psychophysiological instruments could give us the answer. So what is deception? It is acting in such a way which leads another person to believe something that you yourself do not believe to be true. For example, in very simple words, lying. Okay, lying or manipulation of the truth or misinformation or hiding information is all a part of deception. If I have seen a murder and if I say to the police, oh, I was not even there at the crime scene, this is also deception, ignoring or misinformation. If I am at the murder and I say, and I've seen my friend murdering somebody, I'll be like, no, 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 my friend can never do this. So this is also deception because I was there at the crime scene. In forensic psychology, deception is recognized by these three variables to in the instruments. So first of all, when a crime stimulus is given to you, like a murder weapon or a knife, how does your brain respond to the crime stimulus is seen? If you're asked, looking at the murder weapon, that okay, do you recognize this murder weapon, then your absolute obvious answer should be yes. Okay, but instead of giving a yes response, a truth response, you choose an alternate response, that is, you lie. Okay, you say no, I don't recognize this murder weapon. So the response seen in the brain for such an alternate response is also measured in deception, because when you lie, your brain uses more cognitive resources. They have to imagine scenarios, you have to imagine a story, you have to imagine where and what I was. For example, you come in a class and your teacher asks you, why were you late? Okay, of course, because like for example, you can't tell her the truth, no, that I woke up late, my alarm clock was ringing, but I was too lazy to come to a class. Okay, because I didn't like your class, so I was not ready to come. You can't say this. Okay, this is the truth. So you give an alternate response, but for that you have to make up a story. You have to unvisualize everything. So you're like, ha ma'am, I didn't get a rickshaw, I didn't get the bus, it was raining too much, there was too much traffic. So you have to visualize a lot of stories, and to visualize this your brain has to work extra. So the response seen in the brain for working such extra things, or for giving an alternate response, is seen via deception, to understand deception. And when you are deceptive or when you lie, you must see that you sweat a lot, your heartbeat races faster. Okay, the emotional effect seen in your nervous system is also measured in deception. So this is one of there are five instruments that I'm going to talk about very quickly. So there are five instruments. First is suspect detection system. This is a screening instrument. So you have 10 suspects. Suppose there is a rape case and you have 10 suspects. Okay, now in this 10 suspect, you can't put all the 10 suspects in polygraph or high end instruments, because it will cost you too much energy, too much time waste. Okay, and money resources also. So you put them in something known as screening instrument. So you reduce the 10 suspects to two suspects. Okay, so if you see in this suspect detection system, you have this, you have this, you have this, you have this, and you have this. So this instrument is you can say a camera. Okay, to look at your expressions and to capture your face. This is to hear the questions. On this laptop you hear the questions, I mean you see the questions and you answer yes and no. This is basically a biometric sensor that takes your fingerprint, and this is where you put your fingers and this closes like this, so like a velcro. Okay, so this measures your sweating. So if you're lying, your sweating will be higher. If you're not lying, sweating will be normal. This machine is normally in India used in forensic labs to understand if the person is deceiving or not. Okay, but in foreign countries it is used at borders or at airports or at railways. So for example, if you're traveling without a ticket, or if you're traveling with narcotics or with some weapons, or you have you have a terrorist terrorist, if you're you can say potential terrorist with an intent, then SDS will be used. Okay, at borders also, if there's illegal immigration, or sorry, migration, then SDS will be used. Now, layered voice analysis, as understood, it measures your, it analyzes the emotional content in your voice. Okay, so you have basically there are two types. We have online and offline. So online mode is where, suppose you have real time feedback. Okay, so for example, I have a hostage situation, I have somebody who has kidnapped somebody. Okay, and I have to negotiate with the person. So I will use LVA. So for example, I'll call the person and the person says that no, if you want the person to be released, you have to pay 10 lakh rupees or something like that. So whatever negotiation is happening will be LVA will be analyzed. LVA is a software, so LVA can fit, like it's in a computer. Okay, so when you're talking to the person, LVA can analyze the voice of the hostage taker and will tell me if the person is giving me some condition. Is he telling me the truth? Is the subject not sure? Is the person, is it a false statement? Is there any deception over here? Is he thinking too much? Is there emotional stress? So for example, if I'm giving some, for example, as an investigator or a forensic psychologist, I am being very emotional towards him, and I'll be like, listen, what will your mother think, how will your country react, and everything. And if his emotional stress, that is this, goes high, then I can keep continuing talking to him to buy more time and think how I can release those hostages. Okay, offline is when I already have a recorded material. So for example, in a kidnapping situation or in an interrogation, when I already have somebody's recorded material, I can put it in this LVA voice analysis and analyze the voice. Now this in India again is used as a screening instrument to reduce the number of suspects in cases especially of corruption, but in abroad countries this is used for hostage negotiation as well as by the police. So in India, police do third degree torture, physical violence to get the truth from the suspect. But in abroad countries, most of the abroad countries, they use LVA. So instead of beating the person, they do an open interrogation and keep the LVA on the table, and they analyze the voice of the person or where he is not telling the truth. And then further, wherever he is not telling the truth, more interrogation will be taken. Okay, so this is how LVA works. Now, this is polygraph, also known as lie detector in layman's term. Now, polygraph is an investigating tool, not a screening tool. Now, there are 5 instruments over here. First is, of course, the blood pressure that we have. That is the normal doctor blood pressure that you can see this pink line over here. Then we have the respiration over here. Now, respiration is at the lungs and at the diaphragm. Okay, so these are the 2 respiration lines. Then we have something for sweating, that is this green line, and then we have pulse. So you can either use pulse or you can either use blood pressure. The last one, that is this black line over here, is something known as movement pad. So before the person sits, we put a movement sensory pad, okay, which is also known as P gauge. So for example, if you're sitting right now and you suddenly get up, your blood pressure will shoot up. Okay, but so the principle of polygraph is that when you are lying, you will show stress or anxiety, and when you show stress or anxiety, your blood pressure will rise and your sweating will rise. You will breathe faster, or you will breathe very slow. Okay, but when you get up, okay, when you're sitting right now and you suddenly get up, then also your blood pressure will rise. Okay, so to avoid it being recognized as deception, what happens is we put a movement pad. Okay, so if there's any movement, okay, in the body, and there's also movement in the blood pressure, we understand that it is not because of the person lying, but it is because of the movement. So we will cut it out, we will look at other signs. So this is how polygraph works. And here we ask questions: relevant, irrelevant, and control. So relevant questions are relevant to the crime, like did you murder this person, did you did you use a knife, did you kill 3 people, did you kill the person for revenge. So these are the questions for relevant. Irrelevant is nothing related to the crime, like is your name Krupa, do you study in in some the XYZ college, are you XYZ years old. So this is irrelevant. Control questions are something about the prior experiences of the person as a criminal, like before 18 years of age, did you tell lie to anybody? Before 18 years of age, did you rob anything? So this is control questions. Now we have narco analysis. If you recognize this person, this is Ajmal Kasab from 2611. Now narco analysis is also an investigative technique, is also known as hypnotic trance, okay, or is also known as truth serum. Now we use over here something known as sodium pentothal. Okay, now over here this is an injection. We inject the sodium pentothal in the person to release his unconscious memories, or memories that he's hiding, or things that he's hiding and not telling us. What happens is when this injection hits the body, the central nervous system, that is the brain and the spinal cord, depress, or you can say slowly stop working. And because they slowly stop working, we tend to not think too much, we tend to tell truth easily. Okay, so because we're in an semi-conscious stage, not in a sleepy stage, semi-conscious state, the person will very easily reply to any questions asked about the crime. Okay, now the last is BIOS, that is brain electrical oscillation signature profiling. Now to understand this, I'll explain you these 2 concepts, that is knowing and experiential knowledge. So for example, you're going in a bus, okay, and I see Adya, okay, and I'm like, yeah, I know this Adya person, she had called me for this conference, for this webinar, I know her, okay, somewhat I know her. But if I have to, so okay, let me start again. So if I'm going in a bus and I see Adya, I'll be like, yeah, I know this girl, but I have to remember, right, that where did I meet this Adya girl. So I will have experiential knowledge of meeting Adya because of this webinar. Okay. So the where, the why, the how is experiential knowledge. For example, you are going in a train, okay, and you meet somebody, okay, suddenly. So you'll be like, yeah, I know this friend of mine. I know this friend of mine. Like, for example, if you meet me in the train, you'll be like, yes, I know this teacher. But how do I know this teacher? Where did I meet this teacher? Will be experiential knowledge. So that is what BIOS helps us understand whether the person has actively participated in a crime or not. Okay, whether in all the other instruments he had to speak, but in BIOS he does not have to speak. His brain will give us the signals. So what we do is we interview the IO, that is the investigating officer, and the suspect, and we prepare small statements. Okay, now these small statement from this interview, prepare small statements. Okay, so the IO and the suspect, we interview and we prepare small statements. We audio record it. Okay, and we make the person sit like this and audio record it, and make the person listen to the audio recording. Okay, now when he's listening, we put, this is known as an EEG cap. So if you've been to a hospital, you will know that this is known as an EEG cap, or also known as electroencephalogram cap. This small things is electrodes, okay, which measure the electrical activity of your brain at that particular area. So when the person is listening to these statements of the crime, the brain will react. Okay, now if the brain gives me experiential knowledge for a particular act of the crime, that means he has actually participated in the crime. If the person does not, if the brain does not give me experiential knowledge for that particular crime, then I'll be like, then it will be that he has not committed the act. Now this is a small case that I'll just read out quickly. Now this was 8 years old case. So Ravi, in March 2011, Ravi was allegedly strangulated by Kamal Singla and his driver Ganesh after abducting him when he was out with Shakuntala. So there's Ravi, there's Kamal, there's Ganesh, and there's Shakuntala. Now Ravi's family first filed an FIR for his abduction and later filed habeas corpus with Delhi High Court. The case was then transferred to Delhi Police's crime branch. In March 2012, Kamal, Shakuntala, and her brother Raju underwent polygraph tests, but the results were inconclusive and the suspects refused narco analysis. Fourth, one second. Okay. Fourth, Kamal and Raju were brought to DFS Gandhinagar for BIOS profiling. Shakuntala was declared missing. Kamal showed significant experiential knowledge. Now, in the first week of October, Ganesh was found from Bihar, and from the questioning, cops could also find the body of Ravi. So you can see from March 2011 to October 2019, no biological evidences could be helped. No DNA profiling, no blood profiling, no fingerprint, nothing could give any evidence. But because of BIOS, they could find the body of Ravi in 2019. Also, they could catch other people who were going missing. Now, are these instruments permissible in the court? Does the court accept it? So there was a landmark case of Selvi in 2010. It was about honor killing, where where the accused were not cooperating and refused to go for narco analysis or polygraph. Okay, so because of this case, the court followed the Canadian jurisprudence and said that if the individual has to be in full and voluntary control of his possession of his faculties when making a statement. So when he is giving testimony, when he's telling something about the crime, he cannot be semi-conscious like in narco analysis. He has to be fully in control of what he's speaking, because because it is the privacy of the human human being is very important, and irrespective of whether he has given his consent or not, we are still invading the privacy of the person via his mind, that is via bios, and via his body, that is via polygraph. So we are actually violating the Article 20, Clause 3 and 21, where 20 Clause 3 talks about that no self-incrimination can be compelled. If I am asking him to be in polygraph and the results come against him, okay, and if in BIOS the brain gives statement or the brain activity shows something that will is going to go against him, that cannot be done. I cannot give testimony or statement against myself, okay, this, and I cannot deprive the person of his personal liberty also. So in an 2000, that is National Human Rights Commission gave some guidelines that,
Ma'am,
yes, yeah, I'm
I'm
done,
really sorry.
last slide,
Okay, ma'am.
okay. So the National Human Rights Commission in 2000 gave guidelines for forensic psychologists and criminal psychologists that how to use these machines. That the consent of the accused is very important. The magistrate and the accused both have to give consent. And when the person gives a statement in polygraph, narco analysis, or BIOS, it won't be a confessional statement. It would just be a statement that will help me in making a legal decision. I won't depend on the statement, okay. The consent has to be recorded, and the whole activity in the investigative techniques also has to be recorded, okay. So thank you everybody, and this is my TEDx video of detection of deception. You can look into this TEDx video for more information, where you'll understand what are these instruments, different instruments, and how as a forensic and a criminal psychologist, how to use these instruments in the Indian criminal justice system. Thank you everybody, and these are my contact details. So if anybody wants to contact me via email or phone number, be free to contact. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You have a few questions in the chat box.
Yes, okay, I'll read
So,
it. So somebody call who has asked me, can you please, Anubhav has asked me, ma'am, please suggest best colleges for MSc clinical psychologist in psychology in India, also private college. So MSc clinical psychology, there is National Forensic Sciences University, there is Manipal, there is Manipal University, then there is um actually a lot, I don't remember many. There are many now MSc clinical psychology is is a course that is very common in a lot of you can say colleges. After MSc comes MPhil clinical psychology, which is very important for you all to practice as a clinical psychologist in the court also. So I hope that answers your question, Anubhav. Which university did you do masters in forensic psychology? So I did my MSc forensic psychology from Gujrat Forensic Sciences University, which is now known as National Forensic Sciences University. I'm an assistant professor at the same place. And what kind of jobs can we get? So as a forensic psychologist, you can get jobs, you can give competitive exams and get jobs in forensic labs. You can also, as I told in the roles and the scope, that you can work with, you can help give training to the police. You can also do research on in the jails, and you can also work with NGOs and help the families of the criminals or the victims family or the victims. You can also give training programs in society. Can we work as investigators or in criminal? Oh yes, you can. I mean, you cannot work with the police as investigators right now in India. The situation is not like that. In India, the suspects are directly brought to forensic psychologists for further investigation. And yes, you can work in criminal rehabilitation as counselors as well as in juvenile homes. Can the suspects refuse for the test? Rahul Gupta has answered yes, definitely he can refuse for the test, and but when he refuses, he had the you can say, or when he withdraws the consent at any point of time in the investigation, he can withdraw the consent. But whenever he withdraws the consent, or whenever he can you can say refuses for the same, he has to give it in record. So written and verbal narration has to be done, and which has to be attached in the report and given to the magistrate. Yes, I will share my number 9920567773, and my email ID is krupa.nishar@nfsu.ac.in. Krupa is small, sorry. Yes. One second. Anubhav has, I think some Anna has asked which university. Oh, that is done. Komal has asked, ma'am, it will work if we do masters in applied psychology, then do a diploma in forensic field. That's okay, but diplomas won't give you a full-fledged practical approach to how to use these instruments. In 2 years of forensic psychology, first you understand the theoretical aspect, and then you try to apply the theoretical aspect to practical field. Then you have a dissertation also, then you have internship also. So you get a full-fledged practical view of how to work as a forensic or a criminal psychologist. A person, Aradhya has asked, a person has to think before lying, but what if someone has already made up a story in his mind? Will he still use cognitive part while remembering that pre-thought? Yes. So even if he has made up a story, he still has to remember every aspect of it, right? In the truth, everything is already there. In a very layman term, I'm trying to explain to you. So in the truth part of it, everything is just there. Okay, you just have to retrieve the information. But when you are lying, when irrespective of you've already made the story or you're making up the story, you still have to retrieve a lot of information and connect a lot of dots. You cannot skip any part, because that will that the person will catch you. Okay, so I hope Aradhya, Komal, and Anna and Rahul have answered your questions. I think yes, all the questions are done. Are there anybody has any questions? You all can also give me some, we have 1 minute, you can also give me some feedback on the chat box. So if something you liked, something you would like me to improve, that would be good. Yeah. Yes, Adya.
Okay, so with this, I move on to the vote of thanks. Uh, on behalf of LexLawgical Club Manipal University, Jaipur, in collaboration with Gavel Makers, I, Adya, extend a hearty vote of thanks to our guest, Ms. Krupa Nishar, who spared her time from the busiest schedule to grace us with her presence. Ma'am, we're very grateful. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to all the attendees for paying their valuable attention. And it goes without saying, our team for the perfect logistic support and guidance without whom this event wouldn't have been possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.